Hey everyone, it's Wobby in Nashville, site of the 2019 NFL Draft. The Vikings just took Garrett Bradbury. That's good news. You guys have some questions about it? Let's answer them here on the Pick 6. Question number 1 comes from Chris in Fowler, California. With the selection of Bradbury, along with OLine, Reef, Klein, and O'Neal, is that the starting offensive line in 2019? Well, Chris, I think it's a place to start, perhaps, for the Vikings as the offseason program continues at TCO Performance Center. I'm sure the coaches are going to want to mix and match and experiment with some of the different combinations. OLine at center, Bradbury at center. I'm sure they'll be messing around with those during the offseason program and training camp. But yeah, I'd say that's a starting point for the new look Vikings offensive line. Question number 2 comes from Jake. Wouldn't you rather have had Jawaan Taylor or Dillard? I like Bradbury, but not at number 18. I don't think you have to apologize for taking the number 1 center in the class at pick number 18. That was a good selection for the Vikings. Yeah, Jawaan Taylor and Dillard, they might be good players, offensive tackles, but here's the good thing about taking Bradbury, a center. You can play him at center and move OLine to guard, and now you've upgraded at 2 different spots, or you can keep OLine at center and put Bradbury at guard, and you've improved at offensive guard. Either way you slice it, the Vikings got better up front with the selection of Bradbury. The next question comes from Nathan in Phoenix. Do you think it was tough for Zim to sit there and not take one of the great defensive players still on the board? Yeah, probably. Zim loves his defensive players, but Zim also wants a tough offensive line, and we know he wants to run the ball a lot more. Garrett Bradbury is going to help the Vikings do both of those things, so I'm sure Zim is going to welcome Garrett with open arms. The next question comes from Aaron in Kansas City. Any surprises from the first round? Yeah, only 1 corner going in the first round is a little bit of a surprise. Usually there are a few that go. It's a high-value position. And how about the offensive tackles? I thought they slid down the board to the middle part of the first round, and then there are still some good ones available, like Jawaan Taylor and Cody Ford. So teams looking for more help along the offensive line, they're going to like what they see coming into Friday. Jacob in Richfield has the next question. All right, so who's still on the board for the 2nd and 3rd round? I think it's a pretty good looking group. More depth for teams to consider in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. We already mentioned Jawaan Taylor and Cody Ford at offensive tackle. How about Dalton Risner and Greg Little? 2 more offensive tackles still on the board. The corners that I mentioned, Byron Murphy, Greedy Williams, Rock Yassin, all still available. So if you're a team that needs corners, you're in pretty good shape. And then defensive end, Chase Winovich. He's available from the University of Michigan. So lots of good players still available. Our final question comes from Robert. Moving up to take Dalton Risner would be outstanding. Ooh, doubling down on the offensive line with the 1st and 2nd round picks. Yeah, that would certainly help the Vikings. As we talked about, lots of good tackles still available. Trading up is an option, but so too is trading back. Rick Spielman and the Vikings came into this draft with 8 picks. Rick likes to come out of a draft with 10. That means a move down could happen as well. That's going to do it for this edition of the Pick 6. Stay tuned to Vikings.com for more coverage of the 2019 NFL Draft, including an introduction to Garrett Bradbury, the Vikings' 1st round pick, the center out of North Carolina State. We're excited to have him. Submit your questions to the email address at the bottom of the screen, and you could be in the next edition of the Pick 6.